Yo, welcome back to the Sons of the King podcast. My name is Houston. A little bit of change of scenery here. I'm in my car, but not for long. I'll be back in the studio in just a second with Aaron, like always, but we've got another special guest this week. So I want to take the time to introduce him really quickly. He's somebody who means so much to me. Whenever I first got involved in public ministry at a local church of mine, I was a youth pastor about 8 years ago. And that was about the time I met who our guest is today. He helped walk me through that season of not knowing how to do it, what to do, how to handle certain situations. And he really became a close friend, mentor, coach to me at that time. And really anyone who is in my circle knows this guy and has a similar connection with him. Just really great friend, coach, and all the above. So our guest this week, his name is Mikel Flanders. I call him Mike Flanders. A lot of people do. We've had a lot of awesome guests on the show since the beginning. We've had Mike Bateman, Nathan Russell, Pastor Mark Brule, Curtis Hoppy, now Mike Flanders. Mike Flanders is not in youth ministry anymore. He was whenever I was first in it, and so that's why he was able to really connect with me and walk me through that season. But he is still in full-time ministry, and so in this episode, he's going to go over what he does on a daily basis for the kingdom of God, why he does it, his heart behind it, and how you can connect with him and partner with him in what he's doing. This is going to be a really eye-opening episode. A lot of people may know what this is that he's doing. Some people may not. And even those who know what he's doing on a daily basis in ministry, there's so much depth and wisdom that he brings to the table in explaining this, and his passion behind it is really contagious. And I know you're really going to love this episode. And we're actually going to be sitting down with Mike, not just this week in this episode, but the next 2 weeks as well. So the next 2 weeks will be two different subjects. So this week will be, what is FCA? So let's get into it. Mike, I would like you to share a little bit about what you do, what FCA is, and kind of what the ministry, gosh dang it, those scripts. I'd like you to share a little bit about FCA and what you do, and your role. Gosh dang it, Mike, I'd like you to share a little bit about FCA, and what you do exactly there in Southern Missouri.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I laugh every day, I don't do negativity. I don't do no negativity. I think that they mad cause it never offended me. Or it can never offend me. Following God gon' lead to some enemies. I already know it, but I'm ready for war. Let go. So hand me my weapon, please. I'm living life so abundantly. Gave them my all, not just some of me. They tell me that my music fly. Well, I hope that it hit and it sting like a bumblebee. See, I've been taught by a humble king to walk up the ladder, no stumbling.
All right, let's go. Mike, I would like you to share a little bit about what you do, what FCA is, and kind of what the ministry, gosh dang it, those scripts. I'd like you to share a little bit about FCA and what you do, and your role. Gosh dang it, Mike, I'd like you to share a little bit about FCA, and what you do exactly there in Southern Missouri.
So yeah, FCA has been around since 1954, and really we are a sports ministry that focuses on using the medium of sports to advance the gospel. We say this, Billy Graham says a coach will impact more people in 1 year than the average person will their entire life. So my job here in Heart of the Ozarks FCA is I've got 54 schools that I oversee the ministry in. And we lean on the coaches to use their influence at their schools to live their faith out with their teams.
Wow. Okay.
The quick version of what I do.
Yeah.
And we're a global organization. I was on a call Friday morning, and I'm part of the North Division. And that's like Alaska, the Northwest, over to Maine, Eurasia. I think we're at like 22 or 2,300 people like me all over the world representing FCA.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
It's just, it's one of the most amazing organizations I've ever been a part of. because they want me to be healthy, and when I'm healthy as a minister, then the fruit remains there. And so it's been awesome, just getting healthy. I'm working on the physical health thing a little bit more, but emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, and it's God is at work. The access that we have in schools is pretty amazing in these days. Even COVID has restricted us a little bit, but it'll be 3 years in March that I've been on staff. Is nuts.
Has it already been that long?
So I was hired as an area rep. Now I'm an area director, and we have it is really cool. They've got an amazing structure. We've got a whole playbook. We've got a plan, and we have this strategic framework for effective execution that we're just walking out. And God's been faithful. In the 3 years, we've seen, I think, 301 people come to Christ at our events. And then we've distributed over 1,000 Bibles directly in schools, which is something that people don't know about us because of the way our ministry works. Distributing Bibles is a big part of what we do, and we're the second biggest Bible distributor globally. And
oh my gosh.
It's awesome to walk by a principal with like a box of Bibles. I'm like, what's up, dude?
Yeah, seriously, that's so cool. Just walking right down the hallway with all those Bibles.
So
just for a little context, who's number one in distributing Bibles in the world?
They would be
who? The Gideons?
Gideons, yeah.
So
like you're and you're like,
yeah. That's crazy. So it's the Gideons, and then FCA is right there in second on distributing Bible. That's so cool. So do you guys skip over Canada? Because you said you're all over the world, and then you said up to Alaska. Is there districts in Canada also that you guys are part of?
We're in countries all over, so I'm sure there's a Canadian representation, and I should have done my research, knowing there's a Canadian in the house.
Yeah,
Jesus too.
Yeah, that's right. That's cool. So what's a normal day look like for you? As you said, you're a district supervisor?
Area director.
Area director. Okay. So what does a normal day look like for you when you're doing that?
It varies. I mean, my charge, there's 4 charges to my job. It's staff development, which is bringing staff on and making sure they're doing what we're supposed to be doing. As a director, I fly a little higher. Then I'm not in the schools as much as an area rep would be, but it's staff development, donor and board development, field ministry, which is kind of doing what we do. And then we've got board development too. So we have to raise our own support and make that happen. And it's just awesome leaning in and trusting God. And just, so a day, it really does depend. Monday we do staff calls together. Usually Mondays I focus on finances. So it's doing handwritten notes to donors. We're working on an auction that will help us raise some money. And we've got like a steer, half a steer donated, just different various things. We auctioned off a gun a few months back. It's kind of fun.
Nice.
And being from the heart of the Ozarks, we definitely lean into some of that outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
But man, a day looks like spending time with the staff across the state on Monday, coaching Kylie that works with me. I've got a master plan to bring on 3 other staff in the area here in the next 5 to 7 years. So it's making stuff happen in towns. And then, man, discipling, mentoring coaches is really what separates us from other sports-related ministries is we are focused on the coach. So everything we do is to and through the coach. And so when COVID hit, and we've been around since 1954, and when COVID hit, we made a very strategic move to commit to going deeper with coaches and developing disciples that make disciples. And so we are putting our time and our effort, even in this playbook we've developed, into going deeper with coaches and showing them how to make disciples and turning them loose, where God's put them in their schools.
That's really cool. That is really cool. So when I was in high school, we had FCA. It sounds like maybe it was a little bit different Maybe it's still the same. I don't remember, and maybe it's just because I was a student and I didn't see this part of it. But when I was in school, we would meet before classes started, maybe at like 6:30 in the morning, and an FCA representative or coach would come in and they would do like a Bible study with us. Is that what more of the area reps do?
Yeah, that's part that they're always going to be around. Here in Lebanon, Missouri, where I am, they can trace our huddle like you're talking about. It's kind of an all sport, the whole school, anybody can come, non-athletes can come, it's okay. We can trace that back to 1973 here in town, that they're doing that. And so, as we're making this move to going deeper with coaches, more on discipleship, look, the teams are already together. The football teams, the basketball team, the soccer, all these teams are already together. So let's utilize that and that mojo and let's run with them. And so that's kind of, on the next level of where we're going deeper with coaches. I've got a couple college coaches that I'm mentoring right now that they're like, how do I implement this with my team? So I'm going through this playbook that we'll talk about later tonight. I'm going through this playbook with them and like saying, guys, here's how you do it. Here's a plan. Here's a roadmap on how to walk it out. The reality is this. Most people don't know how to grow in their faith. Their strategic plan for discipleship is going to church, and so we've really zeroed down. We've got this roadmap and this E3. We engage, equip, and empower is our three terms. We relationally engage them. We equip them with the gospel, and then we empower them to what God has done in your heart. You go do it with your team. And so
that's really cool.
I mean, it's just like last week we had a phone call or a message from a coach that he had a student walk up and he's like, hey, I got a question for you, but you can't laugh when I ask you. And he's like, man, bring it. What's the question? And the student says, I hear a lot about God, but I don't know who God is. Can we have that conversation? And so it's our job to make sure that coach is empowered with the information and can run in that conversation comfortably and point them to who Jesus really is.
And that's really cool.
Dude, it's a blast. The opportunity we have, my area here, I've got 8 different counties, 54 schools, middle school, high school, and colleges. And I say our target is 789 coaches, 26,000 students that we have to reach here in my area alone. And so we've got a great opportunity, and we're running hard at making sure it's happening. And it's fun to see God at work. I think it was Walt Disney that said it's pretty fun doing the impossible. And that's kind of how I feel a little bit, but dude, it's trusting God big time to make stuff happen, and just dropping your agenda. And this is where God's been working with me this year. My theme for the year is rediscover. I want to rediscover the mystery, the majesty of who God is, what he's called me to be, and or what he's called me to do. And it's just, I love it because the more it is about me, the worse off it is. And when I was like in youth ministry as student pastor, man, it was a little bit about me. It was probably a lot more about me than I'll ever admit.
Right.
And I can't with 54 schools, it can't be about me. It can't. So I've got to find people that I can empower and run with. And so we're trying to figure out church partnerships and what that looks like and how to work with the church, because we have amazing access if youth pastors and running with them in these 54 schools. And there's a pretty cool story of here in town, one of my board members is a pastor, and he's a character coach of a soccer team. Now, look, in the political climate we're in, we need to be smart about what this looks like. And so, but a lot of character coaches are youth pastors, spiritual leaders. And these guys are just going in with the focus of doing character talks every week and using that to open faith discussions. We're not there in that moment. That guy's not there to preach the gospel. Look, my job is not to get a coach to come to a place with Jesus that he's wanting to run hard and then get fired because of it.
Right. Yeah.
We got to be smart in this world we're living in. And so, this pastor friend was for 3 years has been speaking with the soccer team. And this soccer team won the leadership award for the whole state. And we can't help but attribute that to the same thing. And so there's other fruit. And look, some people would be like, but you got to preach the gospel all the time. But what that has done for this pastor is open doors for people to come to his church and for them to talk about faith in a unique way. And so, I love it because we are growing as a ministry that's been around for, so many years, since 1954, but we are growing in a way that is phenomenal, just watching God work. And honestly, it's kind of humbling to be a part of such an amazing ministry.
Right. Yeah, it would be. And it's kind of incredible. You were talking about the numbers, not just the amount of schools, but then the coaches and then the athletes that are kind of in your area that you kind of oversee the districts for and things like that. That's a huge deal, especially when you talk about the amount of salvations that you've seen within the 3 years, because that's the Bible Belt. And so a lot of people would think that everybody's heard the gospel. Everybody, it's been beaten, it's basically just been shoved down their throat for their whole life. But you're seeing, was it 300 and what?
Just 302 or 1 or 2, I think the number is in 3 years.
In 3 years. So the gospel becoming it's lighting people up, lighting students up for the first time. And they live in the Bible Belt. So it's not like they haven't heard it before, but there's something about what FCA is doing that's making it real for them, and they can understand it in a new way, it sounds like.
Well, it's nuts. Like last summer with COVID, it's just been weird. So we'll go back the summer before, almost 2 years ago, we partnered with a college to do a football team camp. And so we just did some coaching stuff to help the coaches. That's our thing. Everything's to and through the coach we do. So coach, in all things, I consider the coach. And so, but we actually had, we finished this football camp this night. And the football coach at this college said, hey, FCA's here. They got somebody that's going to come and speak. We're officially done. If you want to leave, you can leave. And so for us, that's code where they're not being forced to sit to hear us present the gospel. The night's done. Go ahead and go. But 2/3 of the crowd, about 270, 300 kids stayed there. And we had a principal or an administrator from a school share the gospel that night. And there was, at the end of it, he presented the gospel and hey, look, and it was like the most awkward present the gospel, because he's like, if you want to get saved, you go over there, and Michael's over there, and you go get saved. And like 2 kids came and responded to that. And I got to pray with one kid, and I gave him a Bible, and I, put him in touch with the guy and he was up by St. Louis. But I saw this other kid that responded. It looked like they were having an interesting discussion. So I walked over there, and they're like talking to this guy and just preaching and preaching. It's like they're telling the same thing over and over. And I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, this kid says he's an atheist. But yet he responded to the gospel. And so I get this kid a Bible, and he's not ready yet. But look, God is working in his heart. The Holy Spirit is working. And I'm like, dude, it was obvious he's not going to like, Jesus, come into my heart and be, But I'm like, bro, if God is real, don't you want to know it? He's like, well, if he's real, I definitely want to know it. And I said, I'm going to pray 2 prayers for you. Number 1, that if God's real, he's going to reveal himself to you. And number 2, if he's real, Jesus is real, and show me the truth that Jesus is real. And I prayed that prayer with him that day and gave him the Bible. And man, I've never heard from him again, but I can't help but think in the Bible Belt, there's atheists that are responding to God piercing their heart to the truth that Jesus is the Savior.
That is so cool.
And it's a blast.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was actually getting ready to ask you, what's probably the most incredible moment that you've experienced since you've been part of FCA? But is it that, or do you have another one?
That probably would be probably the most impactful one. It's just, there's so many things going on, and that's where, here's the deal. As I'm sharing the gospel with people in various situations, that's awesome. But now, dude, what I'm so fired up right now is this discipleship multiplication. And it's not so much as it's funny talking with these coaches at this college. I've got a Bible study that we're doing, a huddle as we call it. and there's 6 different programs represented, but there's 2 coaches from that group that are like hungry. They're like, I'm ready to go. Let's go deeper. So we've kind of paired off. And I remember sitting with those guys to have coffee, just talking about it. And bro, it felt like the 21-year-old me walking into the registrar. And I wish I remembered the girl's name. And I'm like, will you go out with me? Because it's like I'm asking these coaches, let's go on a journey. And you don't know what it looks like. And would you just be willing to go on this journey with me? And so, dude, in a lot of ways, what is really neat is this focus on discipleship. Dude, I'm having this spiritual midlife crisis that nothing else matters but what Jesus is doing in my life. And like, I'm a professional Christian. I mean, that's what I am. If Jesus only didn't said the things the Father didn't said, that's pretty cool. But if I did that, I would be a better husband, a better father, a better professional Christian. And so, part of our discipleship process is engage God first. I mean, it's going to God first. And, in Habakkuk, the potter's wheel, go there. It's like, it talks about being okay with what the potter makes you, right? Look, my grandma that's with Jesus now, but like when I was in like 7th grade pottery class, I made this horrible little saucer and cup that should have been burned or thrown out. And she proudly displayed it with her expensive china, with the red plate that says "I am special." Everybody's got that, right? And she displayed that. And I'm to the point now where, dude, somebody probably made a cigarette ashtray. If somebody's going to be a cigarette ashtray for Jesus, it's got to be me. I'm okay with that. But we got to be okay with what the potter's making us. And so the journey's been hard, and part of our responsibility is the fundraising side. And so just making that, dude, that's probably the most humbling thing. Just people respond to that. And I have a family that gives me $10 a month, and for just so you put some numbers to it, my cost for our Bible, we have a leadership Bible we give out, is about $10. So that's how I translate that. Like, that's one Bible that family does. But I got this guy that gives $24,000 a year. He was giving $2,000 a month at one point, and he just wants to do one check now. Dude, that's pretty humbling to see that you're worth that much of an investment. But it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with what Jesus is doing in my heart and the opportunities I have outside these doors.
That is so cool. That's awesome. Yeah, and I want to say this. I've been obviously blessed with the opportunity to get to know you over the years. And then once you started this journey, you and I sat down a couple of times, and you told me a little bit about FCA and what you guys do, and talked to my wife, and we really felt like that was something that we wanted to give to as well. And so you talked about, the fundraising and things like that. So what does that look like? Do you have goals in place? What are some things that you want to accomplish this year? And what does it take to make that happen?
I mean, for us, it's sustainability. I want to be stable, strong, and here to stay. And so, when people they're supporting Bibles, and, but they're also just like a church. When you give to the church, it's staffing too. But here's what I found is beautiful with this is the numbers that we have, the 1,000 Bibles and the 300. We probably have had people come to Jesus before, but when you get somebody boots on the ground is when you see amazing things happen. And for me, as a director, man, I've got about 130,000 a year that I'm responsible for, and that's office, and that's our website, and that's buying Bibles, and I've got 200 Bibles in my garage ready to be given out. And it's like every day, just giving God something to work with. For us, I want to hire, and we need to hire staff. I've got 3 other areas that need full-time, and just to start, that's about 40,000 right there to just bring someone on. Because what I love about FCA is everything's got a plan. We got to have budgets, and you got to have a plan. And so we have this strategic framework for effective execution that God's given us. And I've laid out this vision-based staffing is what we call it. And I've got a plan for every 150 to 200 coaches. And I've got like a map how it's all broken up into Bolivar. We need somebody there. We need someone in Waynesville. We need someone in Rolla. And so it is, having a plan is amazing. And the finances are challenging, but it's amazing sitting down with people and sharing the vision that God's given us. Because it's not, look, our vision in 10 years to reach every coach and every athlete.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a small vision.
Right.
But we're going for it. And so for us, I will just say this, the opportunities are bigger than the cash that's coming in right now. And that one Bible, I see that as investing that into a heart of somebody that could change the world.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we live in a world where nothing's free.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
we spend a lot of our money on things that really don't matter. And so, I mean, if you the worst thing is when you sit down and look at your budget and you look at what your spending is and what you're spending money on every month, and you look at it, and I hate doing this. Every time my wife and I sit down and do this, it's like I'm always shaking my head. I'm like, we're spending our money on what? We spent 500 on what? We spent 1,000 on what this month? Like, and it just crushes me. I'm like, we have to do better. And God calls us to be better stewards of, our money and the things that he gives us. And so it's really important that we're not just blowing our money on things that don't matter, but if we are Christians, we should be spending our money on things that are eternal and that have purpose in this world. And so giving to, your local church, local ministries, things like FCA, whether it's local or not, just giving to advance the kingdom is the best thing that we could ever spend our money on while living on this earth. And so being a part of, someone who gives to FCA, it's a huge blessing. Like my wife and I talk about it. We just want to keep giving more. Our biggest thing, and Aaron and I have talked about this, is we want to make more, save more, and give more. Because like our heart is to just give, to advance the kingdom as much as we can. And so we sit down and talk about these things. And I think it's really important that as believers, we do that. And FCA is such a perfect thing to give, financially to every month, because you're investing into the souls of the next generation. And I know that when I was in high school, some of the most amazing things that happened in my life happened through youth camps and things like FCA, where FCA would step into our school, and I was getting the gospel all the time because I lived in a Christian household. But to hear it from guys that were athletes that I could look up to, it was really different. It wasn't just, and this is going to sound bad, but it wasn't just some nerd on a Wednesday night telling me about Jesus and he's wearing his camp shirt, but it was somebody who I could look up to, somebody who's an athlete who would share the gospel. And it's like, man, I want to be like that guy. I want to know the Jesus that he's talking about, and so to give to something like that, where it's changing lives of the generation that's coming up next after us, it's so incredible, because we're going to be passing the baton to them one day to take over. And if we can just, give into that in any way, it's such a blessing, not just for them, but for us too. And so I do want to give an opportunity for, we're going to actually put the link in the description on this video. And when we post, because we want to give people the opportunity that if they are watching this and they feel like in any way they want to give to what FCA's vision is, or to Mike, what you're doing there in Southern Missouri, even if they live in Canada, even if they live in a different, state within the United States, it's something that's going to make an eternal impact and an eternal difference in these kids' lives. So we want to give people the opportunity to give into this ministry. And that's why that was really, one of the main reasons we wanted to have you on, is because we wanted to share your heart, what FCA does, what your life looks like in FCA, and how we can partner with you in what you're doing to advance the gospel. Because Jesus said to make disciples, and that's one thing that I feel like the church misses a lot of times. It's something that I miss because I don't know how to make disciples, because I was never discipled, So seeing someone like yourself doing this every single day, why would I not want to give my money to something like that? Because it's changing lives. So,
it's funny. We just had a conversation with, represent us with the Midwest region, some other folks around, the central states. And we had this conversation you remember the end of Schindler's List, when he like pulls at his wedding ring and he's like, I could have saved one more. Man, I feel like that, because here's the reality. Jesus, the freedom that Jesus brings, the hope that Jesus brings, cost us nothing. It's free. Cost Jesus a lot, but ministry costs. Salvation free, ministry costs. And man, it's funny, since I live off of the generosity of others, God has pierced my heart to be generous. And like every little kid that comes up, like, my baseball team, will you buy candy bars for my baseball team? And I'm like, absolutely, I would be honored to. And because when you live a generous, look, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? My heart is abundant because I've seen God move on our behalf. There's a guy that I'm prayerfully considering going, sitting down with this guy and saying, dude, I want to bring someone on staff. I need $40,000 to $50,000. Will you and your family step up and do that? And it's funny, God is stretching my ask ability. First, I had the $10 a month ability, and now God's pushing me to $40,000. Will you step up and help us? And so, and look, there's a lot of worthy causes, even in this town. There's an organization that is, about mothers and moms and babies and saving the babies. And that's a big deal, right? With everything we had the past couple of weeks, food and homeless shelters and warming stations. And, there's an organization in town that does, like, it's helping with drug and alcohol and rehab. And here's what I'm thinking, like, man, if we can, and the church has struggled with this for generations. If we can get the hearts and minds of the kids before they leave, some of that other stuff isn't a big deal. Battered Women is another organization here that, look, we have an opportunity with the gospel, and yet we just sit and just, Jesus is my Lord, or my Savior. He's not my Lord. I'm not going to obey him in giving. I'm not going to obey him in being a better disciple. It's just, I just be happy. And whether they go to church or not, it doesn't matter. I'm a professional Christian. I'm paid to do this. I'd like to think if I'm not, I still would be doing the things I'm doing in the kingdom, for the church, for the glory of God.
Right. Yeah, that's good. So, I mean, I think, and I love what you're saying, because a lot of, like you said, you're a professional Christian. You get paid to do this. A lot of people don't. A lot of people are just working their regular 9-to-5 job that has nothing to do with ministry. But what this does is this gives opportunities for people to give to someone who is advancing the gospel on a daily basis, who does have a full-time job, that they are able to do that. And since there's a lot of people who don't have that opportunity because they're working a different, they're working in the secular world, it gives them an opportunity to give their resources, their money, their time, or whatever, to someone who is out there in the mission field, sharing the gospel with these kids or these coaches every single day. And I mean, that's such a huge blessing. I mean, if I can't do it, think about and I don't want to talk about rewards too much, but think about the impact that you're making just by giving 10, 20, 30, 50, or $100 or $50,000 per month. It makes such a huge difference. Your money will go a long ways. It's almost like we're sending out little soldiers. Our dollars are like little soldiers that go out.
It's biblical. Here's the truth. There's senders and there's goers. God's called me to be a goer. Man, I need an army of senders that stands beside me. David in 1st and 2nd Samuel and his mighty men, you guys have all heard that scripture. And there's a story in there, and I want to say it's 1 Samuel 30, but I may not be totally correct in that. I was going to look it up this morning. But him and the 600 mighty men come back, and they've been at battle, and they've been exhausted, and they're like, man, I'm tired. I can't go on. But they come home, and everything's gone from their home. Their possessions, their families, their kids, their wife, everything is gone. And David does what David does best. I wish I could rally the troops like David rallies the troops. He's like, let's go. Let's go get them. And so they take, along the journey, there's this river there that's just a big river. And I think 400 of the dudes are like, I'm tired. I can't fight anymore. And so David's like, all right, you guys stay. We're going. And look, that story is amazing. The way that they got everything back and they came back. And the ones that didn't go maintained the supply line to help them conquer and battle, right? And so what I love is you got the ones that stayed back that are tired and exhausted and weary, and you got the ones that went and conquered and dominated, and they're having this discussion. Man, here's your possessions, here's your family, but we're keeping the spoils. And I love it because it says the word of the Lord came to David, and it's true till this day is what the Bible says. From that day until this day, that the ones that maintain the supply line get the same blessings as the ones that are on the front line. So Houston, bro, when I'm sneaking Bibles into little middle schools, man, you're there with me.
That's so cool.
Truth. It's not just sending these little green army dudes off. Man, you're there with me. And I love the fact that that's how God has built this kingdom. That, man, I'm blessed to be able to do this. And it's special. But I can't do it except with people that stand behind us and make it happen. So thank you, for standing with us, and anybody out there. Man, I'm going to be the best steward I can with this stuff. And I know that when if I take Houston out to, where's the butter steaks? Where's that? Ruth's Chris's. If I take him out and spend money on that, I know I can't buy Bibles with that money. And so I try to be the best steward I can be, because there's nothing more important than getting the word of God into people's hearts and hands. And there's nothing more important than giving an influence and an opportunity to live their faith out with their team and to change eternity from one little stinky middle school kid that probably needs a shower, but is hungry to ask the question, who's God? And what opportunity we have.
Yeah, you do. That's so cool. So I want to give you an opportunity just to share with people how they can connect with you, whether it be on Facebook or email or however you do that, but then also how to give, but then we're also going to post it below as well.
So, I mean, I'm all over Facebook. My name is Mikel. It's spelled a little different. It's Mikel. Flanders, F like Frank, Landers like The Simpsons. I've heard it all. So, how are you haddly-daddly doing? Hey, Reno. So my work email is mflanders@fca.org. And I'm all over Facebook. Mikel Flanders. Twitter is @Mikel Flanders. My Insta is, I think it's Mikel Fland. I don't know why I didn't put the ERS on there. You can get a hold of me at all those. My MySpace has been blowing up lately.
How about a Zanga? Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah. I don't even. Is that the one where you took the wooden piece out of the?
No, that's Jenga. Close enough. I mean, who cares?
No, I don't remember that one. So,
that's funny. Okay, cool. Well,
as far as giving, check the link out. But holler at us and we'll get you connected. And we've got great ways to give online giving and one-time gifts and monthly, that's kind of recirculating. I think it's my.fca.org, I think, /Mikel Flanders or something like that. But I sent you that link. So
yeah, it'll be in the description. It'll also be posted on Facebook with several different things. So they're going to be able to see that and have the opportunity to give by clicking on that link. So thank you for, going over what you do and what FCA does. That was a blessing to listen to that. I've heard it a couple of times, but there's always new things sprinkled in there that I'm learning every time. So I appreciate that.
This discipleship multiplication, dude, it's phenomenal. I can't wait to share it with you because the fact that God has called us to go deeper is just to see people are so hungry. They're like you. Nobody's discipled me. I don't know how to get there. And so we're putting traction to it, and it's a blast, man. It's forcing me to grow in my faith. It's like, got to go deeper, you know? And, everybody has that analogy of we're filled up and emptied out, And I'm like, you know what? If Jesus was the rivers of living water, I'm never going to be empty. I'm never going to be. I'm trying to break that mold of this vessel of full and empty, full and empty. Jesus never told us to be empty. He emptied out so we don't have to. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to be this river of living water, man. Always having something fresh, always leaning to go into God first in every situation and walking away from every conversation every time. And who's in front of you? That's the target God's called me to lead. And I want to steward that well. And it's all about, everything in our life is about stewardship.
I love that. That's true. I love it. If you want to, let's go ahead and roll into discipleship. And this one will be less of me asking questions and more of us. If we hear something that we want to elaborate on a little bit more, we'll speak up and kind of go a little bit deeper on it. But I want you to take us through biblical discipleship, what FCA does, and how, people can use that model in their own life as well. Because a lot of us, like I said, for myself, I was never discipled. Mike, you said you were never discipled. Aaron, I think that you were discipled a little bit maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah, no. Before you move right on, I just want to say how cool that is. How, like, I know for me in high school, there was no type of affiliation to the gospel whatsoever. Not for me personally. I was born into a church when I was like 7 or 8. So I always had that foundation. But I'm also an athlete, and going through high school, I played soccer, basketball, volleyball, every sport, but there was never any type of affiliation. There was never any type of Bible study or huddles or anything like that. So hearing that, that's so incredible. That really speaks to me on a different level. So I think this is definitely something I want to get behind. So I'm going to be checking those links. And
it's crazy. As a youth pastor, I've built some big ministries on football guys. I mean, that's where, even back before all this happened, where I was always accused of, pandering to the athletes, because that's who I connected with. And I would do like Lord of the Ring movie nights to connect with non-sporty kids. And, it's just like, you shall not pass. Anyway, another conversation. Sprinkle in some, I'm listening and I'm watching from a distance.
I love that.
But it's, I built some really solid youth groups on get the quarterback, the cheerleaders will follow, and everything else falls into place. And
Amen.
Now it's my job, and it's awesome. Have you ever watched the interview? I just watched it with some millennial friends. It was great. They were talking about Chris Farley, and I'm like, dude, have you ever seen the interview with Chris Farley? And I don't know how we got off from discipleship to Chris Farley, but have you ever seen the interview with Chris Farley? And it was like the Chris Farley show is a old Saturday Night Live one, and Paul McCartney, and he's like, remember that time you were with the Beatles? It was awesome. Man, so go check it out.
I haven't seen that.
You need to. Maybe we should just stream it right now, but we'd have to pay.
We'll do that as long as it doesn't curse. Well, we'll bleep it out. But yeah.
But seriously, there's times in my life where I'm at right now in my job and with Jesus. It's all I can say is that's awesome. That we get to do this, that we get to live this out, and look, it's this mile marker of my life where I seriously am at this. I'm 47 years old, but I'm at this like midlife crisis in my faith that everything I've built everything on is just crumbled away. And I felt at times where I'm like on a checkerboard and I'm hopping from little spot to spot. And it's like I close my eyes and I can see it. And it's like that the movie with Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they're with the one with Sean Connery. When they're
I haven't seen that either.
But it's like the ground's crumbling and I'm hopping to another one and I'm hopping to another one and it's all crumbling and it's all coming down to just there's one piece left and it's just standing on Jesus. And so, man, I just love where God has me and the tension that, and I'm reading As It Happened it's a YouVersion Bible app or Bible reading plan, and it's through the Bible chronologically, and I'm in the exciting book of Leviticus, and it's like talking about how the priests are supposed to do their thing and how it's boiling the meat in the right way, and it's all these minutia details. And I'm seeing God speak in my heart in that moment when it's like, you know, at one point Aaron's kids screwed up and they died because of it. They misappropriated something and they died. And I'm like, man, I got to be the best I can be, so I'm not going to die early, and I can reach as many as God's called me to reach. And
That's good.
Dude, it's fabulous. And so God's
yeah, I love how excited you are about it. Not very many people are passionate and excited about what they do for a living, but I can tell that you are. So whatever that midlife crisis is that you're going through, it's a good one.
Well, I'm not buying a Corvette.
Good.
You know, no Corvettes.
Corvette.
Still got my car, but Jesus and I are leveraging some interest to buy some new things in its hearts that we're doing. So
yeah, that's cool.
But
That's cool.
Yeah. Wow.